Airports have become symbols of both economic and social development. Wherever aviation took off, prosperity and urban development followed decades later. As a mode of transportation, it has advantages that no other mode can provide. The speed, distance and connections that airplanes and airports provide are unmatched. That is why it is very rare to find a country without an airport that instead uses other forms of transportation such as boats, trains or cars, for example, to solve its mobility needs. But there are some countries in the world where there is no room for airports, and here we will talk about 5 of them. Monaco, San Marino, Andorra, Liechtenstein and the Vatican are states without airports. Which is why it is so rare to find a country without an airport which instead uses other types of transport such as boats, trains or cars, for example, to solve its mobility needs. But there are a few countries in the world where there is simply no room for airports, and we'll talk here about 5 of them. Monaco, San Marino, Andorra, Liechtenstein and the Vatican are states without airports. An airport with links to more than 86 countries which is actually located in the French Riviera. Where, then, is Monaco Airport? There isn't one. The Principality of Monaco is communicated with the rest of the world via railways running along the French coast. Through its large harbor receiving many of its goods, and by car along rather bendy roads. And, of course, not to forget TV communications with its Monte Carlo circuit, where Formula 1 and Formula E competitions are held. It is a truly small country, with a population of less than 40,000 and an area of barely 2 square kilometers. Its borders total only 6 kilometers, with a length of only 3 kilometers. In other words, there is no space for an airport, not even a small one, unless the population were to decrease drastically to half of what it is now in order to allow the construction of a very limited airport, where it would anyway be very complicated to land. Monaco has solved the problem of not having an airport by signing an agreement with the neighboring city of Nice. 30 minutes away by car and slightly more than 5 by helicopter. Yes, an aerial connection between Nice and the Principality of Monaco, although it doesn't exactly come cheap. So most flights finish off with a car or bus trip to reach this small country. If Monaco is small, then the Vatican is even more so. It's the world's smallest country, with an area of just 0.44 square kilometers and a population of only 800. Excluding St. Peter's Square, where a light aircraft could land if it was very careful, and if it had the necessary permits, something which would be impossible, there isn't much open space. Nor is there any sea, nor rivers. For an alternative form of transport, the Vatican City is, in fact, in the center of Rome. And it is one of the few countries where access is almost exclusively on foot. That said, entrance is free. Up to a point, given its interest as a tourist destination. However, its isolation is compensated by the other airports that surround it, such as Fiumicino and Ciampino, less than 30 minutes away by train. It also has rail links with Pisa, Naples and Florence. None of those trains, however, actually reach the Vatican City, which doesn't have railways or bus stations, the latter are on its perimeter. If we want to get there by plane, we'll have to go through some transport hub to get the underground, a bus or a taxi. Not far from Rome and from the Vatican City is San Marino, the oldest state in the world. Completely surrounded by Italy, it doesn't have access to the sea. It is so small, less than 40 kilometers in perimeter, that it does not have an airport. Mount Titano, though not very high, is entirely contained within the country. Luckily for the population, the whole of San Marino is relatively flat, and a dense road network leads out of San Marino and into Italy in all directions. One of the closest airports is that of Rimini, in the Italian municipality of the same name, just 16 kilometers away. San Marino may be small, but it is very well communicated. The airports of Bologna, Florence, Pisa and Venice are close by and are often used both by the locals and by tourists visiting the country. The Principality of Andorra is not as small as the other countries we have just visited. Although it has twice the population of Monaco, its surface area is hundreds of times larger, at 468 square kilometers. You would think that Andorra could have not one, but several airports if it wanted to, but the problem here are the mountains. This co-principality is located between Spain and France and isolated from the rest of Europe by the Pyrenees, which surround it completely. Peaks of close to 3,000 meters form several valleys, communicated with each by means of 3 roads and a series of paths. At such altitudes, modern aviation is difficult and dangerous, especially adding mist or ice to the equation. Andorra has therefore resorted to a fallback plan for landing. Some 30 kilometers down the N260 road, in Catalonia, is Andorra La Seu Airport, near Seu d'Urgell. This airport isn't at huge altitude, just 800 meters above sea level, and has a flat area of land on which it is built. Other visitors to the Pyrenees take flights to cities such as Lérida, Tarragona, Barcelona or Girona, a network of airports within a 200 kilometers radius. Andorra may be isolated, but it's certainly worth the car trip from the plane to enjoy the views, or to go skiing. Due to these space limitations, if Liechtenstein wished to build an airport, it would very likely fall partially over the Rhine, and Switzerland, to the east, and the mountains, and Austria, to the west. To solve this potential diplomatic issue of invading neighboring countries, locals use bus or car routes to reach Zurich Airport, about 120 kilometers away. These small countries have shown that having their own airport isn't always necessary, and that they know how to share resources with their neighbors. Having said that, they don't have much choice, as an airport literally doesn't fit within their borders.